Every day I wake up, I think, how can I make my life easier for the consumer? How can I make it life easier for the team? And I serve them. Servant leadership is important. Without them, they run our business, right? Our GMs and AGMs at these sites and all of our frontline team members, they run the business, and we're so thankful that we have them. So a lot of that focus is on those areas and just constant improvement, Jeff. Every day I wake up is how can we be better than the next day? And that, I think, is a level of success too. And a lot of that is the things I learned in the Marines. Having a good mindset and a mentality to get things done and being tenacious.
Let's discover what people are building in the greater Cleveland community. We are telling the stories of Northeast Ohio's entrepreneurs, builders, and those supporting them. Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio. I am your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today I had the real pleasure of speaking with Brian Krusz. Brian is the founder at Sergeant Clean Car Wash, a premier express car wash organization proudly serving Northeast Ohio since 2013 with over a dozen locations throughout the region. Under Brian's leadership, Sergeant Clean Car Wash has been recognized many times over as a 5-time Inc. 5000 fastest growing private company winner, Weatherhead 100 winner, Smart Culture Award recipient, and personally having spent 8 years in the United States Marine Corps himself, a multi-time Vet 100 winner as a proudly veteran-owned and operated business. And of course, Best Car Wash in Cleveland by Smart Business Magainze. This was an awesome conversation. Brian and I cover the business of car washes, how Brian got started in the industry in the first place, how Sergeant Clean Car Wash is changing the face of car washes writ large, the influence of Brian's time in the Marine Corps, his unique approach to recruiting, the role of ADHD in his own process, the role and opportunity for car washing to positively impact local communities, building a lasting culture, and so much more. So with that, please enjoy my conversation with Brian Krusz after a brief message from our sponsor. Lay of the Land is brought to you by Impact Architects and by 90. As we share the stories of entrepreneurs building incredible organizations in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio, Impact Architects has helped hundreds of those leaders, many of whom we have heard from as guests on this very podcast, realize their own visions and build these great organizations. I believe in Impact Architects and the people behind it so much that I have actually joined them personally in their mission to help leaders gain focus, align together, and thrive by doing what they love. If you too are trying to build great, Impact Architects is offering to sit down with you for a free consultation or provide a free trial through 90, the software platform that helps teams build great companies. If you're interested in learning more about partnering with Impact Architects or by leveraging 90 to power your own business, please go to ia.layoftheland.fm. The link will also be in our show notes. I think we maybe just have to start with car washes. You know, I would love to understand why and how it was that you came to find yourself building in this space. You know, like what transpired at some point in your past that led you to making the decision to say, I think I want to go into the car washing industry and business.
Yeah, I guess maybe just my life has just been unique, right? You know, in the Marine Corps, the percentage is that less than 1% of America's population could be a Marine. So it's just a weird uniqueness there from that. And then I was a bomb builder of all things in the Marine Corps. So once again, you know, it was always a proud fact that my mom or my dad would repeat what my job was in the Marines. Yeah. Car washing is unique, right? You know, I have a 7-year-old, and I remember them going through preschool, 7 and a 10-year-old, going through school, and you'd ask the kids, what do they want to be when they grow up? I've never heard car washer yet. But how that story unfolded was back in our first location was March of 2013. But prior to that, I was laid off in 2008 from the banking world. I was an executive banking recruiter. So I was laid off, low man on the totem pole, and proceeded to do something different. At the time, my friend of mine, best friend, Andrew, had some beverage drive-through stores. And he had said, hey, why don't we team up and grow? He was growing his business. So I lended a hand and helped that growth from 1 to 4 locations in the beverage store space, like drive-through beverage stores here in Northeast Ohio, in Lorain County. And then I believe in knowledge is power. So we were at NACS convention, bumping elbows with men and women all over the world for the C-store space, and bumped into a guy, and he said, "Man, I got car washes and I got C-stores." And I said, "Car wash? What the heck's a car wash?" I knew nothing about it, thinking laser wash or whatever the heck. And long story short, he said, "I got free tickets. I can get you to go to the Eastern show in Atlantic City." So, these places are never horrible, right? I'm leaving Vegas to come home, and then I leave and go to Atlantic City. And when I went there, I just fell in love with the industry. It really, really, really reminded me, Jeff, of the Marines. People from all walks of life coming together for a common purpose. I was able to elicit some really good answers to questions that I had, good discovery work. Even longer story, even shorter, I met a gentleman, Vic, who owned a kind of distribution company there, from equipment to soap. He was born and raised in Strongsville. He told me he had just the location for us. It was kind of a hot mess. It was a piece of crap. You can't do any worse than what the current owner was, which I thought, hey, thanks for the confidence.
Sure.
But long story short, we had looked into that business, and it just was a great opportunity for not only the seller, but also for us to purchase and kind of open the door into the world of car washing. I often say we entered the world of car washing difficult because our first location had 176 liens.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it took about 18 months to get through the process, but long story short, it was nothing but uphill battle from day one in the car wash industry. So, which was good, right? It kept us tenacious, and it kept our heads focused on what we needed to do and doing it the hard way versus the easy way.
Right. And not that it ever was going to be easy, but, if you can surmount that many liens, maybe you come to the next one where there's maybe less than a dozen liens, and you're like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, right. Because naturally, I saw vision our attorney just staring at me, and this was a gentleman who went to school with my mom and my uncles on that side of the family. And he's like, "I don't really care about a client-attorney privileges. I have to tell your mom, she's going to kill me." Long story short, yeah, it was a difficult situation that no one would really touch, but we were able to overcome, and he was helpful, during the process as well.
Well, to borrow your aphorism of knowledge is power, one of the perennial pieces of startup advice that is in advance of actually going out and building is that you need to, deeply understand the market and learn about your customer. What are their pain points? What is the status quo? Why are things done the way they are today? What do they care about? What are they trying to accomplish? How did you go about, learning about this industry? I'm so curious to understand what exactly your approach was to learning about the car wash market and what the actual learnings were from that undertaking.
It really allowed me to cut through a lot of the stigma and the assumptions that I had. Right, it's easy. That's the first instinct naturally, not from everybody, from the majority of, hey, you flick the lights on at 7, shut them off at 8, grab the cash, and you're done. Right. It's not a glamorous business. Maybe like an oncologist or a lawyer or an attorney. I'm sorry, a lawyer is an attorney, but a doctor, a CPA, some profession. So I took a step back and said, hey, how can I be best educated? And I said, I'm going to talk to owners. So I literally, as my wife refers to it, my nerd journal. I opened up a journal and I put pros on one side, cons on the other. And I would get on Google and I would call every car washer I could outside 3 or 4 hours of the Cleveland area. And I was all over Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, down in Columbus area. And I went to town, just maxed the credit card out. And I was buying flights and traveling and picking everyone's brain. And it was really good that I started finding people, and then they had friends in the industry. And that was the best education, that I ever got from the car wash industry. I heard it firsthand from owners, and then I physically saw, men and women in uniform, pro, people chain smoking and tattoos on their face in front of customers, con. And I would go down, this list, and it really, really, really gave me good perspective and to hit the ground running come day one, because I knew, it was inevitable here. And I've constantly done that over the 10 years of our existence, and I still do it to today.
But before we turned on the mics here, you mentioned changing the face of the car wash industry. And one of the other things there are a lot of things here that I'm curious about, but Is there an
Yeah.
interesting history to car washes? When I think about like industries overall, to me, car washes would be the like classic example of second order effects, where thinking through the implications of all the proliferation of cars in the country, obviously the automotive industry gets huge, but now people have dirty cars. So they need to clean them. But are you aware of like how the industry came to be and how it's evolved over time and how the face of it has changed in any interesting ways?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I could probably go 7 ways to answer that. But I think the most is, without a doubt, it has changed. And over the last 5 years, if you're in Northeast Ohio or frankly anywhere, across the nation, you can see the explosive growth of car washing. I often tell people, Jeff, that it came from the same thing happened in the 70s and 80s with the oil change industry. It was a thing where, back in the day, you weren't a man, in a sense, unless you did your own oil change. And it was a process, right? You get the pan, you get the, you did this whole thing with maybe your dad or your grandfather, and it was this teaching lesson. And then people said, well, hey, I have way less time to do fun things or to do whatever. And oil changes happened and private equity got involved and they just threw gasoline on the fire. So 70s and 80s, there's a huge explosive growth. They could put, this 2 or 3 bay oil change on a third of an acre. You see them on outlots of shopping centers and it just, boom, it just exploded.
Yeah.
Similar to that here now, right? Private equity is involved in our industry. That's helped fuel the fire, but also the consumers. The consumers are telling us that they want a clean car. They want it fast, easy, and convenient. The unlimited program where you get, charged once a month, wash unlimited. We'll have 16 locations here by year end. So there's a lot of, value in that as well. So without a doubt, that's changed. One of the other components of change is technology. I mean, we use cameras, we use sonar, the utmost up-to-date technology in all of our car washes. I love when we open a new one and we do city tours and, city staff are coming there. The mayor is usually there, chamber members, community members, and they come and they're there for an hour and they're just staring in awe going, oh my gosh, I had no clue, this was how this happened and the functionality of the car wash. And that's a lot of the component to change. But a lot of it too, Jeff, was the people. Like I mentioned, it was just this, especially in Northeast Ohio, it was this long drawn out process where if you wanted a car wash, you knew, I don't have 15 or 20 minutes to waste, right? Because you got in your car, you got out of your car, walked down a hallway. The pay process was clunky. The car wash itself was very clunky. No offense to any, owner operators, of the past, is they would often put cash into their pocket versus putting it into the business. And it just suffered, right? And that just became a stigma of, I'm going to take forever. It's going to be clunky. It's going to be a crappy building. Just don't look at anybody, pay your thing, get in, get out, enjoy your clean car. And that's completely changed. I'd like to say we were one of the main, leaders in the change here in Northeast Ohio, as we've been one of the original ones here 10 years ago, adapting of the unlimited program and how we take care of our team members and how those team members take care of our customers.
So how would you lay out what Sergeant Clean Car Wash is and, the evolution of the business over the last few years and, where you're today?
You know what? The best answer for that is mentorship. I had really good mentors and advisors along the way. And I graduated up from some of the earlier mentors and advisors to the ones I currently have now. But the theme all along was just figure out what your business model is and get laser focused on that. And when we started, I mean, man, if you had $5, I'd clean your steering wheel for you, right? we did everything from detailing to interior cleaning to towel dry. And some of our early locations, we had some of those components. Up until about 7 or 8 years ago, we just became laser focused and said, hey, here's the deal. We're going to make it fast, easy, convenient. We're going to give you the best quality possible. And the people working with you is going to be strong on customer service. They're going to smile. They're going to wave. It's going to be a pleasant experience, kind of almost like the break away from your day, allow you to, metaphorically cleanse yourself, the car wash, getting clean, and allow you to see a smiling face there too. And that's just been the forefront of what we've done to change, the face of car washing and to focus on what we're going to do best. And then allow the consumer with free vacuums. We've got towels, air fresheners, dash spray, window spray. Let them determine the level of cleanliness for their inside of their vehicle and give them the proper tools and resources in order to do that. Some people can spend 5 minutes or someone could be there for 20 minutes, and do an interior cleaning. that's been a lot of helpful people along the way that have helped me get where I'm at. And a good mentor and advisor is helpful where they're a good friend. You can grab dinner with them, grab lunch with them, but they're going to tell you the candid truth. And you got to be humble when you want to actual receive advice and actually fall into a level of mentorship. Because if not, it's just worthless, right? You might as well start talking to the wall.
Yeah. I do want to circle back on the mentorship thread and unpack that one a little bit more. But, you had mentioned the perception that people have historically had about, car washes and how it's evolved, the present state of the industry. When you think about what is the role that Sergeant Clean has to play in this larger, macro picture of car washes, I guess another way to frame this idea that I'm trying to get is like, obviously there are car washes everywhere and we all have our perceptions about how they're operated and run. What are you doing explicitly here that is different and, raises the bar and sets Sergeant Clean apart?
Yeah. I guess generically, right? People always say, oh, my people. Oh, it's my people. We do that. So I'll leave that secondary because we already know that, right? We hire really good people. It's an very extensive process that we go through. We hire slow, we fire fast, and we actually talk people out of working for us. So that's important for us. But two is, we want to give you the best quality car wash in the fastest amount of time possible, right? So time's important. It's ever more important now. I have a 7 and 10-year-old that I mentioned and a family and other things that I do, besides running the business. And time's important. Time's a valuable resource. So I think for us, it's a laser focus on that. We listen to our customers. They talked about free vacuums. They talked about towels. We're constantly listening. Now, we may not be able to do every single thing that's suggested, but we truly, genuinely listen to our customers, and we've made adaptations. And anyone who's been around Sergeant Clean can see the modifications and changes and constant improvements that we put into our car wash. We recently have added some additional soap. We added a brush at the end. It's not a brush, but in our terms, it's a brush. There's nothing brush related to the car wash, but it's a buff and shine system because the consumer wanted a good, drier way to wash to dry the vehicle. So we added that. We're going to bring on at some particular point here next year, like a towels that they can use and dry their vehicle. We've got air, we've got mat cleaners, so on and so forth. The list goes on. But these are things that are suggestions, from the consumer that we listen and we do. Another thing's our team. We constantly interview our team, whether it's, anonymous feedback or direct feedback on how we can be better. How can we serve you better? And our mentality as the company is this is a top down, not a bottom up. And I work for our team. Every day I wake up, I think, how can I make my life easier for the consumer? How can I make it life easier for the team? And I serve them. Servant leadership is important. Without them, they run our business, right? Our GMs and AGMs at these sites and all of our frontline team members, they run the business, and we're so thankful that we have them. So a lot of that focus is on those areas and just constant improvement, Jeff. Every day I wake up is how can we be better than the next day? And that, I think, is a level of success too. And a lot of that is the things I learned in the Marines. Having a good mindset and a mentality to get things done and being tenacious.
Did I hear you correctly that you want to talk people out of working with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So we're not, like I mentioned, we do great things, right? We hire loving, caring people that love our customers, love working with one another. I often say I've not been to work in over 10 years because of the environment that we've created. Now, everyone's going to have bad days and, bad weeks or whatever the case may be, but we try to provide the best impact for them. And when we hire people, these are our direct frontline individuals, the ambassadors of first impressions. And they're in front of these customers, right? They're the first, sometimes the first or multiple takes of how Sergeant Clean looks like and feels like. And if we're just hiring to hire and fill a slot, it ain't gonna work, right? And part of talking them out is we tell them, I did the same thing when I was a recruiter in the Marines. But at the car washes, you're gonna, be outside, right? You're gonna work in 900 degrees in the sun. You're going to work in 10 degrees below zero. You're going to be outside. You're going to be in a wash environment. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not developing the cure for cancer here, but we're going to love on our customers. We're going to provide, also tangible benefits where we have 401k and, medical, dental, vision, all those career paths and good, employment opportunities for team members. And just, we say all that, but we make it hard. We tell them what we're going to do. Hey, you're going to work on your feet. long hours and so on and so forth. And but we also talk about the work-life balance. And car washing is a great thing, but it's not everything.
So I have to ask about your time in the Marines. It's it's something you've brought up a few times. I imagine particularly a formative experience in your own life. How did your time in the Marines inform how you do business, and maybe share a little bit about what inspired you to join in the first place? And obviously they tried to talk you out of it, so it didn't work.
Yeah. So growing up, my one of my good friends, his grandfather was in the Marines. He fought in the Korean War, Chosun Reservoir. So when you envision those old billboards of Marines, he was it. Philip Hahn, Sergeant Philip Hahn was his name, and he was hardcore. And I never forget this. He told me, you could be 80 and go to college. You can't be 80 and join the Marines. Can't. Those colleges, those universities, I looked at like Miami of Ohio or OU or Kent. I eventually graduated from Kent State, but he goes, those universities have been around for 100. They ain't going nowhere. They're not closing any of them. They're going to stick around. And I said, yeah, you're right. And then my whole life has been competitive. I played hockey since I was 5 and golf, and, just kind of lived, I guess, the boy, the man, competitive by nature too. And I said, if I'm doing it, I'm going to join the Marines. So I joined the Marines, the longest, hardest, toughest boot camp. And, obviously I'm partial. I have uncles that were in the Navy, great uncles that were in there. My grandfather was in the Air Force. So don't get me wrong. I love all the armed forces. We're all great. We can't do these things individually. We are collectively as an awesome group, and we protect our country. So it was awesome. But yeah, a lot of the lessons that I've learned is obviously, just grit, overcoming, getting a lot of that. I mentioned tenacity quite often, but yeah, I think I've developed that from my parents, but also from the Marine Corps has given me a little grit to overcome, things that are difficult in your life. Another portion of the Marine Corps, as I got older and, developed rank and started taking leadership courses in the Marine Corps, developmental courses. I got it as an E6 as a staff sergeant, but clear objectives, defining what they are, communicating, 100% adaptability. There's a saying in the Marines called Semper Gumby, which is always flexible. Our motto, Semper Fidelis, so always faithful. Resilience, that comes out to mind, is nothing's easy. Without a doubt, attention to detail. I think I've developed a little OCD from the Marines, T's crossed, I's dotted, sometimes too much. If my team was here, they'd say a sense of urgency, because I want stuff done yesterday, not tomorrow. So sometimes that could be a blessing and a curse. But yeah, it's been pivotal in shaping my life, and especially, a lot of business principles. And I can continue on that list too, but that's just some that jump out at me.
Well, I have never served in the Army. However, I do know a few folks who have in my life. And if I were to channel some of what I can remember of their stories that I would ask you about, is I think they had always expressed a certain tension with like navigating bureaucracy and red tape, knowing that it serves an important role, but recognizing that it also slows everything down. And so I'm curious, with that productive impatience that you just described, how is it that you reconcile those things? And do you find that to be true? And has it manifested in any interesting ways when you think about Sergeant Clean and how you are going to try and grow and build efficiently?
When I had served in the Marines, so I was stationed like in Japan and in some of the Pacific countries that we were in, and then California. And then I was a recruiter for the remaining 3 years here in Medina, Wayne and Holmes County. I don't think any of it was there. Maybe I wasn't looking for it, either. But it seemed to be, fluid on my end and always, constant. And we were just getting things done. Maybe it was on my job that, I did, particularly. And then as far as, when we grow as a company, it allowed me to be, people are going to laugh when I say this, but it did actually help. I've developed more patience than I would have had in the past, because you'd say something and, I'm a staff sergeant or a sergeant in the Marines. I'm talking to a private or private first class or Lance Corporal. They just did it. There was no questions. Right. So now it's more of a collaborative effort, that when we're going to make a decision, we've got different department heads that we're going to focus on making this decision. So it's not a one-man band. The buck doesn't stop here. And it was about 3 years ago when I made the best decision was to publicly announce that the buck does not stop at Brian Krusz. And if we're going to grow this company, I had a hand in hiring a lot of these individuals that are at these leadership positions, and a lot of the general managers and people in these roles saying, hey, listen, I can't be part of every marketing thing. I can't be part of every operational decision. You guys are great people. You just go and do, which is a little bit different. And I had to adapt coming out of the Marine Corps and learning this. And it took a while, and sometimes I still do struggle, with some of the urgency there, but they all know we're all coming from a common place. And there's a book that I read twice a year. It's called The Four Agreements. And one of those is in there, which kind of comes to mind, is don't make assumptions. And that's the thing. So when people know that there's an urgency, or vice versa, there's an email that comes through, I'm not going to make assumptions. He's doing it. We all come from the same place and the same team, same fight, same mission. And that's been helpful too, to help navigate that.
That's fascinating. I'm curious about this idea of talking people out of working with you. Were there any other, parallels or interesting differences between what recruiting looks like at the Marines versus executive recruiting versus the recruiting you do for your own business now?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'll say the severity of, the Marines is, it could happen, right? There's a war type scenario, you're serving your country, but a lot of that was just giving them the whole entire story. So my recruiter was not forthcoming. I was supposed to be a fireman in the Marine Corps. Okay. Now it was under the job field, but under fireman was also bomb builder. Okay. Aviation ordnance. So to me is I want to provide the good and the bad and as most facts instead of very good expectation. I think really is what that is, both on the Marine Corps and on the recruiting for like the beverage store, recruiting for car wash here, is set really good expectations, tell both the good and the bad, and let them make that decision. Okay. If you're forcing somebody in, like I'm going to force somebody to join the Marine Corps, it never works. It never, ever works. And I have seen that where maybe a senior team member says, oh, he's the most qualified or the most senior for this position. He should be the next general manager. Well, maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe he needs another year or two to develop himself, but you're pushing and forcing these people in. It's never worked. I've never seen it work before. Now, it doesn't mean get soft on individuals and don't hold them accountable, but I've never seen anybody forced into a position where it's worked. And I luckily knew that on through mentorship. I just said, that's not what I'm going to do. You can join the Marines. And I would tell people and their families, I don't care if you join the Marines. I'm going to get paid the same on Friday as I did last Friday. I don't get any commission if you join or not. It's the same thing here at the car wash. Hey, you got to be able to do this. You got to get up every day and say, I'm going to happily drive to work and be happy when I'm at work. And if you're not, come in and tell us and then get the heck out of here. It's the same thing in the Marine Corps. I tell everybody, volunteer for everything. You're young, you have, maybe no kids, no family, just do your thing, go out and volunteer, experience the world, because you may not have that same opportunity again. I just saw it to my nephew who left for Kent. Despite what your parents say, volunteer for everything. Go out there and do what you can, experience the world, meet new people. And it's similar here, and I think that's been the most helpful.
I appreciate that mentality. I think it makes a lot of sense. So what's on the docket? When you think about the future of car washing, what does that look like? And what is Sergeant Clean's role in shaping that future?
World domination. I think of that from Pinky and the Brain, right? Every they start, what are we going to do today? World domination. Yep. Take over the world. No, I think we just got a really good thing going on here, and good people. We'll have 16 locations here by the end of the year. Our goal is to continue to expand throughout Northeast Ohio in pockets and cities that we want to be in, that cities want us in, as our valued service that we provide. Plus, our new locations, 9 of our 16 locations that we'll have been existing facilities that we've kind of taken over that were in some level of distress, some not. And we would fix them up, and then reopen them, which is always great for the cities because there's always that distressed piece of property that's sitting in any city, throughout Northeast Ohio. And we did that. And then we take them over and make them look shiny and clean and then provide a good service. All of our new facilities, they look wonderful. Obviously, I'm partial, but a nice, clean, modern building, inviting with the highest technology, equipment. We spare no expense when we build our facilities. We want them not only for growth, but for anything we could do to continue to provide a quality car wash. I think we're just going to continue to do what we're doing. We got 3 that we're building here, like I mentioned, and then next year we got 3 that are already ready, and we're just ready to plan for those for the additional year and keep growing.
Do you find that it is more challenging to build from scratch a facility, or to go through this rehabilitation process and the merging of cultures in kind of a acquisitory way?
Yeah, it's much harder to do an existing facility, because a lot of the remodel that we're doing, we're just under the constraints of whatever current property is, and the building and the equipment and the layout. And the majority of these have been full guts, where we ripped everything out, threw it in the trash, and started over there, or kept a certain wall or certain footer in the building. Our location in Lakewood was probably 80-90% rehab, to where we almost built a brand new facility there. And it looks fantastic, what we've done to that facility that was left a little distress, in the city. And that's way more difficult, same with the culture that's there. It's different. A lot of the good ones will always immediately jump on board and be part of this and be very thankful and humbling and, be the best cheerleader or rock star. And you'll know the ones that just were hanging on and maybe doing, not loving life. They immediately leave, because they know that, hey man, these guys are smart. They're going to figure me out and I'm out of here, which is good, right? We don't waste any time on training them. They don't waste any time themselves being somewhere where they don't want to be. And that's fine. We do try to hold on to all these people. We just don't, take over our car wash and start getting rid of people. Our first effort is to put our best foot first, and we keep all the individuals when we acquire any site. We give them the tools and resources like we do any new location that we open. And it's up for them to make a decision if they want to continue on their way, or, sometimes we got to make the decision too, right? My grandfather used to say people fire themselves. So sometimes that happens. It's not the fun part of the job, but yeah, it happens.
Well, and I know part of the growth story here has involved, the Scalerator program we were chatting about, Dan Eisenberg, also before we turned on the mic here. But I've always found those kinds of communities pretty interesting, when you think about figuring the best of what other people have already figured out, and how a lot of business problems are not necessarily unique to your business, regarding the problem you're trying to solve, but at a high level, they're roughly the same. So, what have been some of the interesting learnings for you about, growth and, going through Scalerator, and how you think about, what comes next, and what will be ultimately responsible for your growth?
Yeah. So one, I think the first thing I think of when I think of Scalerator Northeast Ohio, and then even previous to that, I was a Goldman Sachs graduate. Man, back in the day, I can't remember what cohort I was, but early on in the system. And the first word that comes to mind, and it always does for Scalerator, is community, right? It's just that community of individuals, one, and the advisors and mentors that are there, that help, that are part of Dan's operation, that just truly care and are genuine about helping owners, senior leaders inside these companies grow. And then the community of, peers around you, right, that are going through the same stuff you are. And you may be really good at hiring, and they may be bad, but you may be bad at something else. And it's just a really good complementary service, kind of that yin and yang that you get to be kneecap to kneecap with individuals going through the same thing you've done, or different things that you can help lean on each other and overcome. And just the classes and how it's prepared. I unfortunately went with it during COVID, so it was a lot more Zoom and that whole world. And Dan and his team talk about flexibility and adaptability. They adapted to the crazy situation that we all went through, and it was great. It was one of those, when's the next call? When's the next thing? When are we getting together next? And it just really fueled and helped our growth, taking a step back, working on the business versus, in it. It was nice to carve away some time, talk to the community, and get me focused.
What does success look like for you? What is the impact that you hope to have looking back in retrospect?
Yeah, to me, that's tough. I think the first thing people think of, and you can look at any social media thread, right? It's all about cash, cars and all that junk. Yeah, all that stuff will come. And yeah, cash is important, and that's great. You can do different things. But to me, success is just being happy, and I look around, and I got 2 boys, an awesome wife. I refer to her as Mother Teresa because she is, keeps me in line. But I don't think it's ever a bank account balance. It's memories, right? It's just going to work, being happy. I mentioned early on, like I don't work. This is just an awesome place to be. I love it. And I think of that's success in my eyes, just being happy, getting up, loving what you do every single day. And also too, serving the community. My grandfather growing up, he was a fireman. He lived in Elyria, fireman, a businessman. He had concession trailers at fairs and festivals. So Jeff, I worked, 10, 12-hour days going from one fair to the next, over a 900,000 degree oven and 90 degrees outside. So I learned a lot of resilience, there. And he often told me, and naively, I was young, but he said, when have you paid your community rent? And I think that's important, right? Businesses open in a community. They want to, hey, come propriate, come visit, come buy my soft drink, come get a car wash, come do whatever. And they're never reciprocating that back. Not that they're saying never. I mean, some do, but, a lot don't. And that's how a community works. Of you reciprocating that, they're visiting you, you're going, helping at a fundraiser, a community service. Maybe you're, raking leaves for a veteran or an elderly neighbor. It doesn't always need to be stroking a check, right? It's just volunteering, giving back, joining Rotary or, a civil organization in your area. I think that's also the second level of success, when you're able to give back, be thankful and humble and grateful for the things that you have, and looking at that, but not really from a bank account or how fancy is your car perspective, Jeff.
No, I think I came recently across this idea that, to the degree you can find work that feels like play to you but looks like work to other people, you're probably on the right track.
Yeah, bingo. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the fun piece is actually, it matters. And, when I was thinking about our conversation today, I mean, I personally have such fond memories of car washes when I was a kid, like real magical moments, where either in the car or you get out of the car and watch it go through and in like I don't know, maybe I was weird, but I really loved that stuff. And I'm curious, if you had any of those childhood magical moments with car washes, and at some point, car washing goes from that magical experience to like a chore that you need to do. And I'm curious how you've thought about that change and what you do to instill fun in the business.
You know what? And that's where a lot of us listening to the customer is, we want to make it fast, easy, and convenient, so it's not a chore. And then too, if you do want to do a little extra, we've got like a little bug prep area. You can, grab a soft brush, clean the front of your car, little nooks and crannies and things like that. So if you do want to go a step above, I mentioned the free vacuum area and all the components there, but childhood memories, no. And maybe just because my parents weren't like car people, right? They weren't like, I couldn't tell you, I couldn't do an oil change. I couldn't tell you if this is a 1957 Ford, whatever, and this is a Mustang. I can't do it, but it is cool. My kids love it. And growing up, that I was the cool dad because we had the car washes. It was neat. My dad's Sergeant Clean. That's cool. It was because the kids would love to come there. They see the soap, they see the lights. It's a cool experience. And we've actually toured and brought kids through the back room and, safely, right? OSHA and, hard hats and all the good stuff. We did it safely and gave them kind of behind the scenes tour. One of them was even a birthday party that we had, and we brought some of the kids through there. Their mom had made little Sergeant Clean, little helmets, and we got little stickers and stuff for them. So it was pretty neat. But yeah, nothing personally, but yeah, we've definitely helped a lot of kids be quite happy. And then you hear the intangibles, where I've had several customers reach out that kids are maybe autistic or have some sort of, struggle. And the car wash itself is something that's a calming place for them. They enjoy to come there. They're seeing it. It's a soothing place. And that's cool, right? Some of the things you don't think you're doing, or meeting customers that their car is the most expensive investment or second most expensive investment of their life. And here they get to, effectively protect it, wash unlimited, and just, you see some of the things that you don't hear all the time. And those are the cool things.
Yeah, those are cool. What do you wish people understood about car washes that they don't? General societal level misconceptions about car washes.
Yeah, and I think it's the old stigma, especially in Northeast Ohio. When we come into cities, we obviously have done our due diligence before we even call a city. A a lot of the people, aside from cities, just in general, kind of get this old stigma, this little cartoon bubble pops above their head. And they immediately think of the worst, the nastiest car wash, right? The one that's, down the street where they're doing drug deals and drinking beer and, just the worst of the worst, right? Horrible employees, whatever negative stigma you can put behind any business, they associate it immediately, maybe from a hometown or that's currently in their town. And they go, oh, we don't want one of those, right? Because the owner has let them be distressed and let that fold up. So I think that the biggest misperception is that, maybe from the movie Breaking Bad, right? That we're laundering money and all those negative perceptions. And, it takes you 20 minutes to wash your car. Brushes was a thing. There was a company in the 80s called Ryko, and they actually had plastic bristles. And they would clean the car with plastic. So if you're about 40 to 65, you go, oh, is it a friction? Is it just brushes? We use Neoglide, which is a foam material, anti-porous, and nothing sticks to it. We have a very strict policy on rust and excessive dirt. So we've gone through a lot of these measures. And I think, before you make some assumptions, and behind me right here is one of my favorites by Walt Whitman. And it's be curious, not judgmental. And I think that's the main thing I think of in car washes. Be curious, ask good questions, listen to the facts versus opinions. And after you talk to us and explore, you're going to come to find out that, man, we run a good company and we have a good business and it's a valued service because the market's telling us that they need this. Maybe listen a little bit, before you cast some judgments. So, but everything's been good. The cities that we're in, the cities that we're building in have been fantastic. They're great assets. Why? Because they weren't judgmental and they listened. And that was important. Very thankful.
Well, in addition to the Walt Whitman behind you, I noticed there may also be a meme that speaks to way too many tabs open. And I'm going to ask a question I don't think I've ever asked on the show before, but only because you offered it up. Many folks in my life, but there is an interesting pattern, I think, of CEOs and founders with ADHD. How is it that, that's played out in your own life and how have you managed it? And, it's a superpower. It has its drawbacks. What is that like for you?
Maybe I'll pull in and have my wife answer this question. But yeah, without a doubt, it's been a struggle. It's a blessing and a curse. Why? Because I'm constantly thinking of how we can do things better, visionary, strategizing. What can we do? How can we do this better? Waking up 2, 3 in the morning, typing into my phone thoughts and notes and things that I can think of. But it is a constant struggle. I've learned to take some breaks, some mental breaks throughout the day. If I know I'm going to get on a phone call, I'm going to do a walk. I love to-do lists. To-do lists keep me on point, on track. My calendar has to-do lists. And sticky notes. I have a whole pad here, and there's about 5 or 6 of them here on my desk. Those have been very helpful. Getting organized, time management's been important, and plus accountability. I think that's crucial. Talking to my kids, talking to my wife, talking to my coworkers, saying, "Hey, hold me accountable." Right? If I'm a space cadet when I enter the meeting, maybe you don't want to do it publicly. Pull me aside and say, "Hey, Brian, fill in the blank," or whatever, because you can only get better if you know. And I thrive on constant improvement. We as a company thrive on constantly improving, getting better, and being held accountable. And those are some of the things that have been very helpful for me coping with it.
It's very interesting. So you've also mentioned, mentors a few times in our conversation. I think it can be kind of this elusive concept for a lot of people of like, practically, how is it that you go about cultivating, mentorship relationships and the reciprocity of those relationships, and it's not just a one-way thing. What is your philosophy on mentorship and the importance of mentors, and how have you approached that in your life?
Yeah, I can't remember when. Maybe it was at the Cleveland Museum of Art, or we went to Pittsburgh or something a long time ago. But there was something Michelangelo had said, which was ancora imparo, on his deathbed. This guy said that on his deathbed, and he said, I am still learning, or I am learning. And that, I think, just when I saw that and I heard that before, I was like, this is how you got to live your life. Constantly learning. You're never better than anybody else. Constant room for improvement. You need to be humble enough to accept these things. And what better way than a mentor? People that have been around the block a time or two, who's been in these different situations. And it could be outside. I've got some mentors that I currently have now. And like I said, I've graduated up through those. I just knew it was somebody important. And I love my parents, so they hold me accountable as some level of parenting, mentorship, right? Grandparents, But also I needed somebody outside, kind of like the friends and family, that can really hold me accountable and have to know the struggles that I'm going through. It's cool that you just ask somebody and they want to help, but you need to be respectful, right? You're not calling them every hour of every day, every week. You just kind of set up, hey, let's meet every other month or quarterly or whatever the case may be. And I often say growth lies outside the day-to-day of what you're doing. You're not going to find a lot of that growth doing the same thing you're doing. So get outside your comfort zone, get up with a good mentor and advisor. You will graduate up, right? They may move out of the area. It's just good. And a lot of them, the best perspectives I've got are the most, inquisitive ones that are outside the car wash industry. Like Jeff, you're asking great questions about the industry. And it's the same thing. I'm learning about them and their industry, whether it's, robotics or logistics or insurance business. I'm learning from that perspective. I'm learning about the industry. So it's also very helpful. It's a two-way street, maybe more the person being mentored is more 70-30, but it's a learning, and you're providing a good environment. You're being thankful. You're reminding them of the thankfulness. And then when you get older, you're going to reciprocate that back. So I've been fortunate enough to, in my community involvement, done some mentorship with the Connections program here in Strongsville at the high school. Other individuals that have came and left Sergeant Clean and now have started a business or working at, some of them going to college or working there. And that's the cool thing. Even the Marines that I put in the Marine Corps to now, I've got great relationships with these people. And I find it fascinating, I'm not getting choked up here, but that they call and think of me. And I get to be the dude who could help them. And why? Because I believe in reciprocity. People have helped me, and I'll always have time to help others, and I think that's cool.
What is the and this is almost like a lame question, but I do love it. But what is the unspoken part of the story so far? Like what is important that we haven't talked about that you think people should know?
A lot of time, people go, well, what's made you successful? And I wish I could just go and go, all right, it was November 15th, 2009, and, kind of point a finger on it. But I think I go back to what I told my nephew. It's just volunteer for everything. Just be open, be receiving, be humble. And I think a lot of that, what's made me successful is just putting people first. It sounds cliche. It just sounds generic and cliche, but genuinely care for people. Man, and this is, my parents taught me this. My grandfather taught me this. Maybe it's old school people from Europe, that just came over here and fought tooth and nail for everything that they've got, and just be humble. And it's just caring about people, developing relationships. And anyone listening who knows me, that's true. I just love people and love relationships and want to help others. And I think that's probably the best thing it's made me successful and made me kind of that unspoken, consistent theme.
As old school as that may be, I think the flip side of the coin is timeless. That I think that stands the test of time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and behind me, you see a bunch of books and stuff. And I have a mentor, and he says, why are you reading that crap? You need to read good novels, right? Let's see, Cannery Row and, War and Peace and The Third Reich, or, some of these, big thinking type books, these classics, Moby Dick, that could really kind of take you outside. And, it speaks to what you just talked about, right? The classics, they've been around forever. They ain't going nowhere, and it's if history is any guide, right? It's lasted this long, and it'll continue.
Right. They continue to be around for a reason.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is awesome. I mean, really, I've enjoyed this conversation very much. I'll ask you our traditional closing question, which is for, and you can say Sergeant Clean Car Wash, but then I'll ask you for another one.
Yeah.
Your favorite hidden gem in the area.
First thing, so obviously I love the Cleveland Cavs. You can see a lot of Cavs stuff behind me. I love them, but they're not a hidden gem. But I have to say, without a doubt, Ohio City Provisions.
Yeah.
Adam and Trevor, they are doing some fantastic things over there. When you talk about kind of reinventing their own food chain from, right from the farm, right to the dinner plate, and the things that they can do are just, man, they're phenomenal. You got to go see it. If you've not been, You got to get up with those guys. You got to see them. Kind of that old world butcher, feel when you walk inside the facility. Just once again, the care, love, the passion for what they do. Just, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I appreciate that plug, and I don't think anyone's called it out before, and I happen to live a block away from them, so I don't want them to get too popular, but they also deserve all the success.
Yeah, they're good people, and they raise their own animals, and just they're behind the entire process. And I'm sure they could speak more on the GMO and health and all the things related.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get them on the podcast.
Yeah, heck yeah. Get Adam on there and Trevor, just two awesome dudes who just genuinely love what they do. This is a good thing to have in the city, and Ohio City Provisions is where it's at.
Well, yeah, Brian, I just want to thank you again. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing a bit more about your story.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I appreciate you having me, and thanks for carving some time out for me.
Absolutely. If people had anything that they wanted to follow up with you about or, participate in a car wash experience, what would be the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, that's a good one there. And then our website, sergeantclean.com, sgtclean.com. My email address is, I don't know if you want to provide that, but yeah, anybody can send me an email, and I'm happy to have them reach out to me, and we'll get connected.
Perfect. That's all for this week. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. So if you have any feedback, please send over an email to jeffrey@layoftheland.fm or find us on Twitter @podlayoftheland or @sternhefe, JEFE. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please reach out as well and let us know. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or on your preferred podcast player. Your support goes a long way to help us spread the word and continue to bring the Cleveland founders and builders we love having on the show. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. The Lay of the Land podcast was developed in collaboration with the Up Company, LLC. At the time of this recording, unless otherwise indicated, we do not own equity or other financial interests in the company which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of any entity which employs us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.